here. But before we get started, I just want to welcome everyone. And I'm going to read our opening prayer. And then, David, I'll ask you to read your weekly poetic comment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen.
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 David?
Well, thank you, everybody, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And my quotation from today was from T.S. Eliot from Little Gidding. The poem is the last one of his four quartets. And the four quartets are among the most beautiful poems in the English language. I'm just going to read a little bit from the end of that. And through the unknown remembered gate, when the last of earth left to discover is that which was the beginning. At the source of the longest river, the voice of the hidden waterfall, and the children in the apple tree not known, because not looked for, but heard, half heard, in the stillness between two waves of the sea. Quick now, here now, always. A condition of complete simplicity, costing not less than everything. And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crown knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Thank you, Toda Rabah.
Very, very good, David. This not only sets the tone for reading the book of Exodus, but it also talks about science as well. And
I think it is, yeah.
Looking always towards the unknown and trying to come up with the answers that lead us to at least try to answer all the different questions: who, what, when, where, how, and why. I purposely left why as a separate entity because in the scientist's mind, all they can do is answer who, what, when, where, and how. They can't answer the question, why.
Yeah, I remember attending a lecture at the planetarium many, many years ago by the then director of the Vatican Observatory. And he said that science does not answer why. It cannot, but faith can. And it's just two types of brain. You have one part of the brain that looks at the who, what, when, and where, and the other part, the faith part, that seeks out why.
Yes, Father Guy was a very special person.
Yeah.
Yes. And yes, Don.
I'm sure we can't avoid the fact that T.S. Eliot was a notorious anti-Semite. So all through his writing, he was wrongly criticized through his whole career for that.
Well, sometimes it's good to know the bad parts as well as the good parts of anybody. That's our Torah. We are given some of the mishigas of the family, and at the same time the nobility of the family or the individual. And that's what I think. It's not all black and white, as science leads us to believe. I call science an ism for those who believe that the world can only be explained in terms of science. But it can't answer the question, why? That I have to leave up to philosophers in religion.
In theology.
Art and music,
Right.
literature, poets. Okay, they try to answer those questions.
And it's spiritual as well.
Yes, well, that's why I said religious. That's right, but spiritual too. Right.
As long, if I could just add the one phrase, the caveat, as long as you state that all of those religions, creative arts, all those are based not on facts,
Right.
but they're based on beliefs,
Right.
beliefs and interpretations. Right.
That is Father Guy's interpretation as well. And
Actually, it goes back a few centuries before that to Tertullian.
Yes, he mentions that in his lecture on that. I've attended several lectures by Father Guy as well as David has, but very, very interesting fellow. And has anyone ever gone up to Mount Graham and seen the Vatican Observatory?
I have.
Okay. It's very interesting, and what's very interesting is that the church, because of what we have found back in around 2006-ish, the Vatican sponsored a conference on what if life is found elsewhere in the universe. How would that affect scripture? So there's a lot more. So even though we can talk about scripture, and that's what we usually focus on here, you can see how there are different realms that it has that it is linked with. You can't be entirely right-brained or entirely left-brained. We have both sides in our head, and we have to look at the conceptual as well as the linear. And you still had another and, Mark. I'm sorry.
You still had another and there, but all I wanted to say,
Go ahead.
The lecture that I attended about faith and science was by Father George Coyne, who was at the time the director of the observatory.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
The director currently.
Right. Thank you for mentioning that. It's a fascinating thing. There's a book by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, The Great Friendship, that covers this topic. And it's a book about ethic, but it's very well written.
Wendy and I were actually interviewing Father Coyne years ago when we had a radio show, and you can still get it online. It's called Let's Talk Stars, and the shows are still available, I think. However, he told us an interesting story that he was at the observatory and he was doing his run. And of course, when he does that, he has his robes that he takes off and puts them on a tree so that he can do his run. And suddenly he saw a shadowy figure walking closer to him. So he ran back to his robes to put them on. And it was Pope John Paul. And the Pope, they started to talk, and he said, what are you doing out here? And the Pope said, I'm just looking for a sandwich. And he said, oh, I can tell you where that is. And he walked with the Pope over to the restaurant, and they walked the dining room, and they walked in. And the employees were shocked. They said, Your Holiness, what are you doing here? If you want a sandwich, we will send one to your apartments. And he looked like a little kid, and he said, I just wanted a sandwich.
That's a great story. Yes, Don. Yes, Don, and then Michael.
Quickly back to T.S. Eliot. I personally think that anti-Semitism is on a continuum, and no matter how liberal we think, anti-Semitism exists as a continuum with Hitler at one end of it, the extreme end. But we can forgive and we can explain, but we have to recognize, I think, that's an indelible road right through history.
Good point. Very, very good point. That would be another topic for this. Both of these would be extra topics, outside of Torah study, but they are excellent topics to discuss and maybe have lectures about, or discussions as separate courses. Yes, Michael.
Could you let me say something regards to last week's discussion just for a moment?
Sure.
And we were talking about the subject of lying, and what occurred to me that if you remember the story about Oskar Schindler, he was lying to his own people in order to save Jews.
Mhm.
Where, in contrast, you had Nazis saying, "I was only following orders."
It's an interesting comment. That would be an excellent thesis, for someone to write about, the contrast between the two. It may have already been done, but I like it. I like it a lot. Thank you, Michael.
Mm.
Gail had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gail. I missed your hand.
No. I'd like to end the discussion really, but I would like to say that it's all well to say, well, there's good and bad in everybody. But look at something like Charlottesville. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is not good people, period. And that's not trying to fudge one way or the other. It's absolutely wrong.
Okay. I'm going to let you have the last word on all of that, so we can get into our back to Torah. Rabbi, Sue couldn't make it today, but she asked you about the different meanings of hardening of Pharaoh's heart. Could you explain a little bit? We had discussed this before.
Well, I think, Marty,
Yes.
I respect the question, but I'm also respectfully going to suggest that we continue our reading, because we're going to encounter the phrase a number of times in
Okay.
a number of different moments, I
Yes,
guess.
it is recurrent.
Between Moses and Pharaoh.
Right.
And perhaps we can look at the different nuances
Okay.
of translation at that point.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we left off intentionally at the end of verse 23, and God is making another prophecy. He says this is what's going to happen. And this is why Moses has to take on his task. And then I said, there's a major shift in all of a sudden, there's another story that comes up. And so we're going to read this story. If somebody would be kind enough to read verses 24 through 26.
Okay,
What chapter
Okay.
are we?
chapter 4, isn't it?
Or
It's Exodus 4,
Okay, I'm
verse
sorry,
24.
Okay, let me
I
tell.
missed the rest. Yeah.
And it came to pass on the way at the lodging place that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a flint and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet. And she said, "Surely a bridegroom of blood art thou to me." So he let him alone. And then she said, "A bridegroom of blood," in regard of the circumcision.
Okay. There's a lot of discussion about these few
yeah.
lines. First, like at any other time, I'm going to open it for everyone to discuss. Okay. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yes, Don.
This always leaves me speechless. So I just want to say, could the experts jump in here?
Experts?
Expert.
Okay, we have two rabbis,
Right.
and there's a
Neither of
lot.
whom claim to be
One
experts.
pastor
So let me
and
ask
one
a
pastor.
question. Okay,
and one
there's
pastor.
there he's and hims.
Right.
Mentioned. They're all, the H's are lowercase. Okay, who's he? Who is it being? Who is he being refer? Who does this refer to? Is it Moses, or is it?
An angel.
Excuse me.
An angel could have been an angel or the Lord.
Well, it's something, it's sort of ominous.
So
Hey,
it's
God,
God.
Well, no, it's a little he. It's not a
Oh.
capital H. Then it would be God. Is it Moses, or is it his son, or like that? Yes. Please, Pastor Bruce, you had your hand up first.
I just I'm not an expert in this particular scripture verse, but I did look at it ahead of time because I knew this is where we were coming back to, and I've had plenty of time this week to study. So anyway, there's an Italian Jewish Bible scholar who is a professor of Bible at Hebrew University, and his name is Umberto Cassuto. Do you know him? Do you know him?
Yes. Yeah.
I know his work.
Series
Sure.
of, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm glad the rabbis know who this is, whether anybody else does or not, I have no idea. But I started looking at this very carefully, and I found all these different things as I was studying. He argues that it was Moses, not the son, because Moses was the one that should have circumcised his son in the first place. That's what he says. And that it doesn't, he said it really doesn't matter either way, but he argues that it was Moses for that reason. But in either case, Sephora understood that circumcising their son was necessary, and that Moses' life or his son's life would be saved by her actions. And that's exactly what he said. And I thought, well, that's about as good as anything else, I guess, that I've read. So I'll share that one today.
Okay. Thank you. That's an interesting take on this. Yes, Rabbi.
The classic above and beyond Cassuto, or prior to Cassuto, the classic story, as I remember it through the commentators, is that Gershom is the one who's threatened.
The mention of the name comes in the next. That's
Pardon
right.
me? I'm sorry, Mike. What?
No,
did you say?
it comes up very shortly. The name of the first son.
Right.
Yes.
And he's the one who is threatened because he had not been circumcised. The commentators go into a long discussion as to why Moses had not circumcised Gershom yet. And so Zipporah steps in and says, this is something that we must do. And it's interesting that she's a Midianite who forces Gershom to become part of the covenant. And then depending on whether you're looking at a feminist orientation or whatever, is whether she has indeed saved his life, she's saved Moses's life because of this error on his part, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Goes on like that.
Very good. Any other ideas? So we have two very important concepts here. Yes, Chris.
I just had a question. I don't have ideas today, but I do want to know if the other son was circumcised prior to Gershom. Is that what it says? The one was circumcised, one child was circumcised, but the other was not, and it happened to be the elder son.
I don't recall.
It's not mentioned.
Okay.
It's not mentioned. So
Well,
you can write a midrash on that.
Okay.
It's not in the scripture. It
If
doesn't
Sephora
tell
was-
us.
If Sephora was going to take care of one kid, she would have had to go ahead and take care of both kids. You know what I mean? That's what I was thinking.
This goes back to a question we raised at the beginning of the book of Exodus when Wendy had asked a question about a year ago. How do we know when they looked at Moses, how did somebody know that this may be a Hebrew child when the child was in the basket?
Yeah.
And she asked, well, did the Egyptians also do circumcision? And we discussed that at that time. We may have forgotten some of that discussion too.
Apparently they did, but not as early in the infant's life.
Oh.
When did the Egyptians do that? In the life during the lifespan to boys?
Well, the Arabs, the Muslims now.
No.
do
When
at
did the
age of
Egyptians,
13.
not the
Well, I'm
Arabs?
saying that maybe they followed that tradition of doing it when the boy is bar mitzvah.
Yeah, puberty.
Puberty, a time of marriage. Okay.
Oh, boy.
Islam is, I guess they take up, they may do it then. I don't know, but I do know in ancient times it was done prior to marriage.
So you're, in other words, you're making the connection to this phrase that Sephora can now say that it's not so much a Hebrew or an Israelite
Right.
custom here, is now you're ready for marriage, and that's why she says you're a bridegroom, as like a bridegroom to me.
Okay.
Is that the case that you're making?
Well, possibly. Then you have to ask the question, who is the bride? And we can talk, we'll, yes, Pastor Bruce, before we do that.
Well, this is all intertwining so well because I think it's Khatan, bridegroom.
Yes.
It's
Right.
also Arabic for protection, to protect.
Right.
Yes. Very good point.
Just
I
not
think
when
this
it's
is all
pronounced,
intertwined.
not when it's pronounced in the Yiddish as chosim, but it,
Okay. Yiddish? I don't.
Right.
Sorry.
No, but you're right. No, you're right. The origin of the word also
Yeah.
means protector. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What we discussed this at least a year ago. Yes. Okay. Yes. I'm sorry, Gail. Yes.
Well, wasn't Zipporah Midianite?
Yes, she was.
No, she wasn't Egyptian.
Correct. Correct.
No, but she could have known the traditions of the Egyptians, and both of us know, Gail, on the discussion, what was Moshe? Was he Egyptian and he knew the language? Was he Midianite? Was a Hebrew coming from the slaves? I mean, so it's difficult to know. But if, it seems like Moshe knew the Egyptian language according to the story. So,
Definitely.
so maybe something connected with that. We don't know if Moshe was Midianite or not. In my mind, if we go out of these sentences, I believe that not the entire, but many of the people living at that time would circumcise their children. And I think that at one point was to differentiate them from other tribes, but don't know.
Yes, Don, and then I want to ask you another question. Yes, Don.
I wonder if rabbis could help out with the original Hebrew here, because there's a bunch of pronouns which in English must correspond back to Hebrew, and was I sought to kill him? Is there like a direct object in the Hebrew for that, or how?
No, it's just that's the translation, and and sought. Now you might say requested, and the question is, well, who is God requesting the act of killing from? But that may be stretching it a little too far. But sought to kill him is the direct pronoun.
Right.
But not, as Marty was saying, with a small h, not a capital H. But that's actually an assumption, because it's not like God God was going to kill God's self.
Right.
But we're not the first Torah study class to be confused with all of this.
There is another school of thought saying that there's an entire story that has been lost.
Sure.
And and so this is a remnant of some other story that was inserted here.
Right.
But what is
Marty? After you, I want to add one more thing, if I could.
Oh, okay.
Okay, not necessarily to take it in a different direction, but my eye caught a comment in Eitz Chaim, with the conservative movement translation and commentary, that this is an indication of what we frequently see in the contemporary world. This is assuming that Sephora was a convert, was a Jew by choice, many of whom frequently are much more knowledgeable and observant about rituals and practices than the born Jews are. And so,
good point.
So
Definitely a good
she
point.
steps in saying, "Oops, Moses forgot. He's been so busy, and he forgot about the circumcision ritual. I better step in and make sure that Gershom." And as Chris was saying, maybe the other son also. I got to make sure that they're kosher.
Okay. Well, we were talking about circumcision.
That sounds proper.
But here's the important question: why? Why the circumcision is important at this point? Why is it placed here? Yes, Chris.
It talks about separation. Being, like Rabbi said, kosher or no kosher. If it's put in the words, but to me, that's what it represents. Separate yourselves from the rest of them, and that is a sign that you are.
Okay. What does it symbolize? When a newborn baby boy, why do the bris? Why go through the Brit Milah at all? What does it signify? What does the bris signify? We had discussed this about a year ago or more. It goes all, it goes way back because of Abraham. Yes, first Helene and then Chris.
The bris, as far as I can tell, reunites the family, number one, regardless of their beliefs, if they are truly, truly children of God. If God is the father never leaves the child. The father accepts the child and is compassionate, okay? And this is a traditional experience for the entire family, regardless of how they interpret all this. This is God coming alive again to protect act, as you said, and to anticipate the generations that will repeat this beautiful and important experience.
Very good point. Chris, just 1 second. Some people have discussed this as that little bit of blood at the time of circumcision, analogous to the blood that we're going to be discussing painted on the doorposts of the house and gates.
Mhm.
Okay. Some people have said this is a metaphor for this. What else? What else? Yes, Chris.
I remember the real reason why this is done is a covenant between God and man. I forgot that. Don't forget it, but it didn't put it right.
There was a section we read between the pieces.
Right.
Okay. That's the section that we had read during the story of Abraham. And we had this discussion way, way back. And so a covenant. What is another word for covenant?
Contract.
Great.
A which?
A contract.
A contract. Did somebody say treaty?
A treaty. Yeah.
Great. It's a breed, and I'm asking Rabbi Norman, because at one point he said that there is a differentiation between covenant and breed, and another word.
An oath?
Because treaty and contract. That because in my mind, when I deal with this, I say a breed is a contract, and a contract needs to have at least two parts.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, we call breed the brit milah. So it's like a sign of connection to someone, either to the people or to God.
Right. I might suggest that when we're talking of a brit as a covenant, as opposed to a legal contract or an agreement, the brit has this extra dimension. Call it holiness, if you will.
Good.
Call it sacredness, but it's one step higher on some other plane than a simple legal contract.
Right.
There's an additional. A marriage is a brit.
Right.
We call it brit kiddushin. Okay, it's because it's a little bit different than, okay, I'm gonna sell you this book or this piece of paper or whatever it is.
Mhm.
The other thing that if I can jump in,
Sure, might as
maybe
well.
this is an answer to Marty to your question, maybe not, but people may not be aware that in the hierarchy of the mitzvot, the hierarchy of the 613 commandments, Brit Milah, covenant of circumcision being performed on the 8th day, is higher than keeping Shabbat, than keeping Yom Kippur.
Okay.
There are only several others that are higher on that hierarchy. You can break almost every other commandment in order to make sure that the circumcision occurs on the 8th day. It's that important of an act, and as Miri said, as a sign, as an ot le'olam.
Right. Ricky had her hand up before, and then, okay. Then Chris, you had your hand up briefly? No. Okay. Larry, did you have your hand up for a while?
Pastor Bruce first, before me.
Okay, Pastor Bruce,
And
then you, and then Don.
I was just listening to the words of contract and oaths and things like that. I'm trying to put it in my own mind of of, especially after what Rabbi Roman just said about the hierarchy part of it. And I didn't know that. I guess I need to study which ones are the most important out of the 613 more often. But I look at this as a holy agreement between two parties. I guess if I was going to say it that way, that's how I would have to say it at this point. But that's just what I wanted to say after all this discussion. That's all.
But if I may, before Larry, because I want to respond what you said, Pastor Bruce, an agreement takes asking the little boy 80 days old if you agree. So it's a mitzvah means a command. So it comes from above, and it doesn't matter what you think. It needs to be approved. That's why the word covenant versus contract, it seems to me, I accept in that way of holiness. But with agreement, there is a problem in my mind.
Okay. Larry, please.
This might be coming out of left field, but going back to Abraham, who was willing to sacrifice his son, could you say that the bris is sacrificing a small part of the son in deference to a God?
Very interesting question. Excellent question. Yes, Don.
Referring back to the text.
Oh, no. First answer Larry's question.
Oh, no, sorry, I don't have an answer for that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is there any relationship in you then?
Again, not to be flippant or whatever, but it's an interesting question, Larry. I've never heard that take on it, and I would tend to say, amongst the traditional community, the answer would be no, because the tip of the foreskin that's removed is thrown away. And they wouldn't throw away something that was supposed to be representative of a gift to God.
Thank
That's
you.
a
Okay.
good answer.
So maybe I'm putting 2 and 2 together to get 5, and I've never heard the question before. So that's where I would be led.
Good question. Good answer.
But certainly
Okay.
certainly not from an expert.
No, but it's a very good point. Don, you're on, Don.
And I apologize, Larry, for skipping over you there. Just referring back to the text, trying to understand the flow here a little better. So in regards to circumcision, since it takes place in an inn, I'm guessing that Moses and Sephora and the 2 kids are still on the donkey. They haven't yet reached Egypt. And so because God says that Israel is my son, my chosen, it looks like a preparation that before they enter Egypt, that they need to be fully equipped or de-equipped, however you look at it. And so it's like to me, it's like a preparation for the beginning of the true mission, Moses' true mission. But it's still the most bizarre scene. The idea that maybe there's something left out.
Oh, there is something left out.
Yeah.
Okay, why she touches his legs with it? It doesn't say if she touches the child's leg or Moses' leg with it.
Yeah.
These are all discussions that have come before us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We don't even know if Moses is there.
That's right. That's right. So we can midrash. It can be a lot. I mean, it's a garden of midrash, a mishmash of midrash. but it's an important consideration, because putting the blood on the leg, some people have said it was putting it elsewhere as a testament, and we have discussed that. That I have done this and everything, that it was placed elsewhere on the body. Okay, as sign of a testament. Yes, Gail.
No, she uses the term, and I assume the Hebrew is translated properly. You're a bridegroom of blood to me. That would imply Moses. But I mean, her son can't be a bridegroom to her. I'm really flummoxed on this whole thing. And twice there's the word bridegroom is used.
Yes.
In verse 6 or 26.
Bridegroom
of blood?
Yeah.
Strange term.
That is strange. Bev, you'll have to unmute yourself, and then let you chime in here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, that it might be the bridegroom or the yes, bridegroom of blood might be God and Sephora. This is when she joins,
Okay.
accepts the commandments and.
Well, it obviously is. She's accepting that and saying, "Oops, before we do anything else, we've got to do this." But one of the things, this is where I wish Mark would come back to our group, because he was an expert on Kabbalah.
Mm.
We still, talk about the bride every time we go with Lecha Dodi,
Right.
welcoming the Sabbath bride.
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't say that this occurred on a Saturday, or the Sabbath.
They didn't have Shabbat yet.
That's
Sorry.
right. That's right. And so I would be interested in knowing what the Kabbalists would say about that. And then, first Rabbi Mary and then Rabbi Norman. Ricky, did you have your hand up too?
No, I'm just scratching my face.
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe three things. The first one is the issue of blood, that we're going to see forward the meaning of blood, which is life, basically. You lose your blood, you don't live. The second one is that Chatan, that we mentioned, and Rab Norman said, it's a Brit. It's Brit Kiddushin, which two come together. So it's like when she does the milah, the circumcision, she becomes like I'm very nervous about that because of Christianity, family members with God. So I don't want to say that Mary is God or whatever, but that's the second one. And the third one is the meaning of the foreskin. The word in Hebrew is erla, which means ral, which means poisonous, is something that you want involved. So removing the foreskin, the erla, is removing something that it's poison, that it's, help me out with another word for poison.
It's dangerous or
that you don't want to have, that you, by removing it, you become kosher. You become clean. You don't have that piece that needs to be removed in order for you to be clean. And we women are very lucky. We are born without poison, so.
Okay, I like that. Okay, Gail, and I'm going to ask Rabbi Norman to chime in too.
The other thing that struck me is that a woman is doing the circumcision.
Yes.
Now, is there any other place where that's done? I always thought it was a man on man.
But if the man can't, or if there is no man around,
Oh, okay.
a woman can do it. I don't remember another one in the scripture, in the
Okay.
holy texts, but it's certainly understood.
It's acceptable then for a woman to do. Okay.
Okay.
Right. If for
Rabbi
one
Norm-
reason or another the man there's no man around to do it, or the man won't do it, or whatever. It seems to me that in picking up on what I guess it was Pastor Bruce who initially led us in this direction, that that Sephora certainly sees this act as being a protective gesture for Gershom before they're going into Egypt.
Mhm.
What it was she was fearful of, we're not really sure. Was it his physical well-being? Was it to make sure that he was identified with the rest of the Israelite clan? But whatever. And picking up on that Chatan as a protector notion, as opposed to, of course, in olden days, the husband was the protector of the wife also. So, so we have that kind of notion.
Very good. Very good. Yes, Chris.
I was just thinking, when Rabbi is talking about this situation with Zipporah, I believe, or it almost sounds like Zipporah received some kind of a understanding, a spiritual understanding that led her to do this. Because if I remember the scripture, it says that after they left Egypt, they all had to be circumcised. There were no prior circumcisions before that. They had been in Egypt for so long and they had stopped that. Am I correct, Rabbi? Or
No, I don't think the Egyptians didn't forbid circumcision.
no, but do the Hebrews, while they were slaves, did they remember to circumcise?
As far as I know, we assume so.
Okay.
We assume that they still practice that.
Okay.
Again, going to the story of Moses as a baby, in the basket, that the Pharaoh's daughter saw that he was circumcised.
Okay. So I take it all back then. Thank you.
That's okay.
I want to
Yes,
hold
Bev.
to-
Wait, excuse me, Mary, just a second. Bev
I'm
had
sorry.
her hand up
I'm
just
sorry.
before you. It's okay.
Well, I was just, of course, at the then I was skipping through Hertz, and they're talking about the bridegroom of the covenant. So this is not necessarily of a person or a god or whatever, but it's joining into the agreement. So,
Very, very good. Very good. Rabbi Mary and then Rabbi Roman.
Well, one of the things, and we say it in the Shema, that one of the things that we want to have around us is a reminder. It's leot. So we have to put it in our hands and our heads and our heart, and remembering that. Probably they didn't want to mention the part that is on Brit Milah, but the issue of remembering with a sign, with an oath, I think that it means here that kind of thing.
Okay. Very good point. Rabbi Roman.
Yeah, I just recalled while we were talking, I don't remember the source. I don't remember if it's classic or if it's more modern, contemporary. But there's a midrash kind of story that going back and here, like Don was saying, that it's difficult to understand who all the hymns are and the pronouns and whatever. But there's a midrash or a legend, put it that way, that talks about what actually happened at this quote unquote night encampment. Okay, that, and whether and so the legend is put in the voice of Gershom, who has a vision, has an experience, a dream, a nightmare, whatever, as several of his ancestors have, and we've encountered in the text, where they hear from God or they hear from a man or an angel or whatever, and he wakes, and so the legend goes out that he wakes up and he goes to mom and says, "Mom, I had this horrible vision," and da 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 da, where the message from God was that I'm not like Dad, I'm not like all the rest of the Hebrews. Da, 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 what do we need? What do we need to do? What, and hence the following through at that point. I don't recall the source of that. It sounds almost like it's more contemporary than classical.
Right.
But
Right.
do you remember I said whenever we have empty spaces,
Sure,
that's time for discussion.
sure.
And
When we have
all of
empty
the
spaces, when we have empty spaces and we have missing voices or silent voices.
right.
Right.
So this is
Yes,
important.
this is a comment to Rabbi Norman because of the Hebrew, that the word milah and malon
Mahon,
are
right. Right. What she's saying is that the malon is where they lodged overnight. That's even the modern Hebrew word for a hotel or a motel, and then milah, which is circumcision. Can I just add or make a request that we not incorrectly use the word bris for circumcision? Okay, bris or brit is the word for covenant.
Covenant,
Milah
right.
is the circumcision.
Correct. Right.
So
very important.
I encountered somebody just a couple of weeks ago who said, "Gee, I didn't know that all the members of the royal family in London, the prince, all the princes, whatever, the grandsons, that they are all circumcised by the moil, the official moil of the Jewish community." That's been the case for hundreds of years. But I had to say, I said, yes, but it's not a ritual of circumcision. It doesn't make them Jewish. It's done only as a surgical procedure, but by someone who they assume has a lot of practice, in doing it. But it's not a bris.
Right. It has, that is correct.
Right. It's just the milah.
So we really have it. So now the question, one final question on this. It's where these few lines are inserted. Is this sort of saying that after 400 plus years, that we are going to now combine what was foretold, okay, that the rest of the covenant, it now has, now it can play out. Is Sephora, okay, she's often left out in the discussion of prophets. When we are talking about Miriam, when we talk about the Jewish maidens that are working for Pharaoh, Zilpah, and I forget the name of the other one. the two Pharaoh's daughters, and they're
I'll find it quickly. I'm blanking.
Okay,
Also.
they're also discussed as prophets by some rabbis, and we use that book to discuss the role of women as prophets in Judaism. And I can, just a second, I think I have it here. Just a second. Yes, The Path of the Prophets by Rabbi Barry Schwartz. We discussed some of that, but he omits Sephora. And by this act, is this being somewhat of a prophet of trying to, is this really, in other words, in rather than saying it, she's doing what she is being told? Yes, Rabbi.
I can't answer your question because I was looking through the text.
Okay.
Shifra and Pua.
Shifra and Pua. Thank you.
Shifra and Pua.
Shifra and Pua.
The two midwives. Right?
And in this book, the book of the Path of the Prophets, she's omitted, and yet this act, it seems to me to be very pivotal. What would have happened if you in all of our discussion, if this were Moses, as some have discussed, if this was Gershon, as some have discussed, suppose that she did not do this, and start to see how would the story have unfolded, or would the rest of the story have unfolded? Chris, you're shaking your head. Did you have something to say, Chris? Oh, okay. But I often wonder, it's when things are inserted, there has to be more to it. Yes, Pastor Bruce.
I look at the entirety of Judaism as being a light to the nations, according to Isaiah. And I see this as being, along with some other things, but this is one of those things that then, to me, says that if Judaism is to be a light to the nations, then nations have to be involved in what's going on here. This is someone outside of Judaism who's becoming a part, and it's very clear that, you know, there's supposed to be a light to the Gentiles, and here's a Gentile that's getting the light, and I just look at it that way. I don't know if that's a good way to look at it or not, but that's kind of what I see here, is that there's part of this already going on, that's this bigger spectrum of life out there from beginning to end. And if Judaism's to be a light to the Gentiles, then here's one of the ones that it's happening with right here in this particular passage.
There's a lot. It's an excellent
Bruce,
point. Yes, go ahead, Rabbi.
Pastor Bruce, you enlighten me. Okay, you enlighten me. I just want you to know, regardless of what group you belong to. So for me, it's not what, well, anyway, I just wanted to let you know. I truly appreciate your input.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Second the motion.
Yeah, we would all agree. I would expand that to everyone here, because we ask, I'm going to use the word probing questions, and it's important. So how would Okay, let's expand this a little bit. How would Zilpah know?
Sephora, I mean, how that would,
Zipporah, I'm sorry.
how would she know
Uh,
what?
How would she
know what?
understand that this ritual is so important? Doesn't say anything about her. It's been omitted. The story is gone. So we have to come up with, why would she just out of the blue come up with this ritual?
Well, in the legend that I was just referring to, you know, Gershom was the one who was reminded of it in a vision. And he went
Right?
to mom and said, "Hey, mom, look down. There's something we got to do here."
Could it also have been Jethro,
Where is Jethro going to come from? I
her
mean,
dad?
no, I mean I know it's her dad, but where does he fit in?
Well, he's her dad.
Yeah, but
He
I mean, if they're,
and
you know, going
he's going
back
to
to
have other
if the text
roles.
says that you know God encountered him and
Yes,
sought to kill him, unless we're saying that the two hymns represent two different people.
we don't know, but how would Zipporah know the procedure and doing all of this? Because Jethro are described as and Ruah.
Well,
Okay.
if indeed the various peoples of the time practiced circumcision, and
Mm-hmm.
Jethro was a priest, we
Yes.
assume that
Yes.
he was knowledgeable,
Yes.
and he may have trained, or she just may have witnessed out of curiosity. And I don't want to go into that necessarily of you know why she was watching, but you know she may have been witness to it. She may have been his helper. She may have been a
Sure.
nursing assistant
So
for the sake of the patient. We don't know, but
Could
that would make sense that she was familiar with the procedure.
we had
look
a
it up on YouTube.
YouTube,
excuse,
right, right.
yeah. I love that. So yeah, yes, Ricky, please.
Yeah, I just picked up a who's who in the Bible.
Sure.
Reader's Digest version, so I'm just going to let you know where it's coming from. Under Sephora, part of it. Biblical scholars, who they don't mention, speculate that God was angry because Moses, or possibly one of his sons, had not been circumcised. Zipporah immediately circumcised her son and touched the foreskin to the genitals of Moses, implying a substitutionary circumcision. Had Moses himself undergone the surgical procedure, his mission to Egypt no doubt would have been delayed.
Okay.
Well, so I guess that's when Babylon touched his legs with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to throw that into the mix since I got this book within reach.
That's good. Well,
I think I bought this 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yes, Larry, please.
Okay, in Fox's translation of Exodus 4:25, Sephora took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin. Now, can a flint be sharp enough, delicate enough? And also, as part of the ritual, aren't there prayers involved in what we call the Brit and part of the covenant? More questions.
Well, in later practice, I'll try to answer that. In later practice, meaning already as of the Middle Ages, yes, there are prayers. There are prayers associated with it, but there's the only prayer, so to speak, in the sense that we understand prayer at this time in the Torah, is Moses's prayer to God to heal Miriam. Okay, they don't have a prayer that's associated with any other particular ritual yet. Now, having said that, I can say with a good amount of confidence. I won't say 100%, but I'll say 90%, that if the circumcision is performed even by a non-Jew, but if it's announced that this is that the procedure is for the purpose of a brit, of a covenant, it's still kosher. Okay, so the prayers don't have to be recited, and that doesn't affect whether or not it's a brit. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm fairly confident about that.
Hey, yes, please, Rabbi Mary.
I thought, wasn't you, someone can mention that Moshe they didn't want Moshe to have done, so he won't be in pain to go to Egypt. And what it reminded me of is Abraham had a circumcision. And he sat outside his tent suffering when the angels came by. So, and here we have an interesting thing, because we don't have Am Israel. It's probably a drash. I mean, but an inside drash. But we don't have at that time Israel as a nation.
Okay,
yeah,
very good.
Larry, in your Everett Fox reading, I don't think the implication was that Sephora touched the foreskin to Moses's groin because Moses was not circumcised. We're assuming that he was circumcised back from the story when he was an infant.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I have stone here, and ותיקח ציפורה צור, ותכרות את ערלת בנה, ותגל ערלה. No, there's no indication about. I think that Ricky, is you that said that it would have been in pain?
Oh yeah, maybe it was Ricky from the Reader's Digest.
Yeah,
That would have postponed Moses going to Egypt.
His journey.
But not because he was being circumcised. It's because he would, in doing the procedure.
Okay, in Fox, she touched it to his legs and said, "Indeed, a bridegroom of blood you are to me."
But again, who's the his?
Yeah,
and we just don't know. That's right.
Right.
Another thing that occurs to me, if you remember when we were little kids or not so little, and we wanted to convey to the world that we are the best friends on earth, we would punch our finger, have some blood, and transfer that kind of blood, which was, in that case, was a breed. We are friends.
Blood brothers.
Blood brother and blood sisters. That's right. That's right. Sue happens to be a blood sister of a Oto Sue. No pun intended, but it's Sue Sioux. She is a blood sister of a lady that we knew. Also, symbolically meshing up the symbolic and the actual ritual, the symbolism of blood, or the actual use of blood, overcomes evil. Mm-hmm.
Okay, blood is a cleansing agent.
That's right.
Actually, in the biblical literature.
That's right. Even that carries. That discussion is also going to occur. That discussion is also going to occur when we discuss the whole concept of painting the doorpost with blood.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
Well, as you said earlier, maybe it is an illusion or a metaphor.
That has been discussed. That's right.
Right.
David, I think that's a Wendy hand.
I have two things. One is just a quick story about the blood and blood brothers kind of a thing. When our daughter, who was adopted, first came and lived with me as my ward, and we took on the mother-daughter relationship, and we talked about blood being thicker than water. And she said, well, we're family. I said, no, we're water. And she said, oh, well, do you want to mix blood? So we actually did. We pricked our fingers and we became blood relatives. And I thought, and that was very, very meaningful to both of us because she'd had a rough life before she came to me. And the other thing I wanted to say is about the dream is when you would say like Gershon had a nightmare about something happening and now they had to do something. Well, if everybody who remembered a nightmare, I don't mean just down in biblical times, became a something everybody had to work on as God is telling them this is what they must do. Why does one person's dream have more effect than somebody else's dream? Why was Gershon's better or Joseph's better, than anybody else's? And so that was going through my head when you talked about the dreams.
That opens the door to Freud and a whole bunch of other psychologists and psychiatrists.
I just was, Wendy, one thing that comes to my mind, because you said what dream is chosen, is that a dream is one of the, I believe, 3 ways of communicating with God directly in a red line. And one of them is chazon and halom, and I don't remember the rest, but that's one of the things. So you have very special people that God talks to them.
So basically you're saying in their dream they see the personification of God, and that's why they say, this is not just a regular dream where we have to count sheep. This is something that came to me from above because I could see the form or the shape or whatever. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And in Jacob, the dream is very powerful in the story of Joseph, as you mentioned. Yes.
It's a good thing Jiminy Cricket wasn't here. That would add another dimension. Oh, golly.
You mean Jiminy Cricket, whose initials are JC, and that was a strong message to the non-Jewish community.
Okay. I had no idea. Okay.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyway, thank you. Sorry, but any other comments about these few verses? Shall we move on? Well, we have another 45 minutes or so. So yes. Oh, okay, Gail.
I have to read Friedman's comment. It goes on for several. No. Several paragraphs, but his opening line is this, and I think it kind of brings us all to the end. No one really knows what the episode at the lodging place means, period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's right. So,
now, my particular theory is that there was the scribe who was writing the Torah, right, for the first time, and they're writing it all down. And he had too much to drink. And he made up the whole story. So that's my mid-rush.
Okay. Well, this is good. And Gail, there hasn't been a clap of thunder over your home or a bolt of lightning, so we're in good shape. Anyway, Gail, would you like to read Friedman, if you have that from verse 27?
Okay, let me get my glasses on.
Sure.
And the Lord said to Aaron, boy, suddenly we're changing direction here totally.
Yeah.
The Lord said to Aaron, go towards Moses to the wilderness. And he went and he met him in the mountain of God, and he kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the Lord's words that he had sent him and all the signs that he had commanded him. And Moses went and Aaron, and they gathered all the elders of the children of Israel And Aaron spoke all the words that the Lord had spoken to Moses. And he did the signs before the people's eyes, and the people believed, and they heard that the Lord had taken account of the children of Israel, and that he had seen their degradation, and they knelt and bowed.
Okay.
Amen.
And yes, comments.
Just incidentally, it's the exact same wording of the phrase, and he met him. When we're talking about Aaron and Moses here, that we were talking about God and the him, whoever was in the previous little interlude. Exact same phrase.
Yes, David.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that as God and Moses are talking more and more and more, they are truly developing a friendship that you don't see very often in Scripture. And this friendship possibly includes a lot of things that did not get translated or transferred into the Scriptures. For example, did God invite Moses in for a drink from time to time, or to play video games or watch movies? I mean, it sounds funny, but I think there's a serious point that God considered Moses a friend. And a lot of us would like to feel that way, to have a very personal relationship with the Almighty.
Very good point. Any comments about what David just said? Because some people would say, well, Moses is being obedient. Okay. But friendship takes it to a different level. Yes, Chris.
Definitely, I agree with David, because he has gone up and down with the situation. He's asking for help for here and there. And God and him continued to build up from the moment that he saw the burning bush to now trusting him with everything that he's got coming. And now he's sending Aaron to confirm that everything he has heard is what needs to be done. I absolutely agree with that. And I think it's beautiful, because when you can build up that kind of relationship with God, oh my gosh, there's nothing left in there for you to do but to trust and carry on. So I love that. Thank you, Dobby.
Yes, Gail.
How much do we really know about Aaron? All of a sudden, the Lord is speaking to him, out of the blue. God's speaking to him. There aren't too many people that God speaks directly to in the Torah. But here's Aaron. I mean, what makes him special? What's, and he's an interesting character. He really is.
Well, who brought up the subject of Aaron before? We could just go back a couple of weeks.
No, he had mentioned it that he was going to have Aaron speak, but I just wonder, what makes Aaron so special?
Well, Moses had suggested him.
Yeah, but I don't know. But God spoke to him Aaron must have been a little
God suggested, not Moshe. God suggested him.
Right, it was God who suggested it. I would like to say, Gail, that at this point, we sometimes forget that God sees our heart. It's not necessarily our background, where we came from, and this and that, but our heart. And he must have seen something very special in Aaron and Moses and Abraham and David and.
No, but Aaron does some very interesting things later on.
Down the pike, yes.
Holy.
Right, but that's humanity, David did do. I mean, interesting things. We're talking about interesting things. I think what I'm trying to say is the heart, is the deepest parts of the heart, what really God recognizes, is this man going to carry my load? And we all fail. None of us are perfect. But I would like to believe that he saw that in order for him to select it and in order for him to accept all of us as his chosen children, you know.
Okay, thank you. Don.
Yeah, well, a little further down the road, Aaron is kind of Moses' hatchet man. I mean, he's pretty tough dude. I mean, he executes a lot of people. But to David's point about friendship between God and Moses, I've always been interested that Moses is God's conduit to Pharaoh, because, I mean, you would think that God could directly confront Pharaoh and say, let my people go, or this is what's going to happen. But he goes through Moses, and then, which requires Moses to then to prove himself God's messenger. So I'm sure all this stuff has been, I mean, there's lots of commentaries on it, but I'm not aware of them. I don't know if anybody has any input on that.
I would have to defer that to the rabbis. I would only like to add there's something in this passage that struck me about Aaron. He doesn't question anything.
Get it? Right. Right.
In other words, is he just accepting it?
Well,
His
there's no
personality
dialogue.
is totally different from Moses.
That's what I was trying to point out. This is like
Yes.
a bolt out of the blue, and there's no dialogue. Aaron isn't discussing
right.
anything with God. He's just doing whatever he tells him to do. But there's no dialogue, none. Moses, you know, tries to maneuver and compromise and suggest. Aaron just, I don't know, he just does what he does.
But what I'm thinking and speculating and just came to my mind, and it doesn't have any proofs, is that Aaron was the older brother. And if he's the older brother, the order of the people, of the sons, the daughters, no, but the sons, it's important. So if God said, look, your little brother is in trouble, go and help him out. You know, just that thought from reading a lot of stories, but maybe it was the connection of brothers that God knew, and he just said, you know, just go. You know, like a parent would say, you know, you're the big brother.
Okay. Pastor Bruce, you won by a nose. Your hand up, then Rabbi. Oh, was it the other way?
No.
Oh, okay.
We were just comparing noses. And what I'm remembering just in this little section is that one of Moses's, excuses back when too was that he couldn't talk very well, and the fact that Aaron is already talking and doing does make sense from what Rabbi Miri said, because of the the eldest in the family kind of idea makes everybody who's listening then be more respectful of the elders at the time, certainly. But if Moses was stuttering through all this, would people have been as convinced? And I think that God has the reason for having somebody to say what he's saying at a certain time for a reason. And so I look at this as being very clear. Moses's excuse is being, I'll have Aaron talk for you. I'll have Aaron do this for you. And so it makes sense that all of this is coming together like this. There wasn't a lot of dialogue here, like Gail said, but there's a lot of previous dialogue between Moses and the Lord about some of these things that were coming up. And, so I think that it's just kind of interesting that sometimes when we're weak, we need an older brother to help us out.
Good point. Okay, several hands here. I think Bev had, first the rabbi, then Bev, then Larry, and back to Gail. Okay.
One thing that Aaron is never, one title that Aaron is never given
Right.
is as a prophet. Okay. And the reason that he's not given as a prophet is because he doesn't reject his role. God says to him, this is what you're going to do, and he does it. Okay. Whereas a prophet traditionally says, are you sure that you mean me? I can't speak. I'm slow of speech, whatever it might be, and da 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 da. So Aaron certainly has his followers, not only in biblical times but throughout all history. But that's his character is to he's put into leadership positions, but he will do as he is told.
Very good.
That's
Very good.
oh,
Okay, next one is Bev.
okay. Add me to the list.
Okay,
Okay, I'm thinking of the sibling relationship and the relationship with God. God, I think, trusts Aaron more to say what he is supposed to say. And since Moses is the argumentative one, he might go off here or he might go off there. Just a thought.
all right. Okay, Larry, you're on.
Okay. God spoke to Aaron to tell him to meet his brother Moses, but he spoke to Moses the words, and then those words Moses told Aaron, who then told the elders. So God didn't tell Aaron the words, but the importance of words are really stressed here. And, at the beginning was the word, and words are powerful.
Okay, very, very good. Very good. Yes, Gail.
Okay. I'm also very interested in the phrase, and they knelt and bowed. I mean, you talk about acceptance. I can't think of any other place in the Torah where they knelt and bowed. I mean, that's an amazing phrase. It must have been a heck of a
Yaakov
feat.
and Esav, he walked bowing. Jacob and Esau, when
but
they
knelt
meet.
and bowed.
Excuse me?
They got on their knees and bowed, both. I mean, that's a lot.
Well, Jacob.
Yeah, with Jacob and Esau, they do. Okay. Ricky, is it okay for the rabbi to say a few words about that? And then okay.
Again, just if I can add a little bit of a clarification from the translation, okay, where it says that the people in what is that in the middle. They may worship me. Wait a minute.
Lamed Aleph.
I'm in the wrong quote.
Lamed Aleph.
There it is. Okay, there it is. All right. The Amen. I knew that was the phrase I was looking for. So at the beginning of the verse, right? The people. This translation, the people were convinced. All right. It's actually not. I would disagree with convinced. It's the people accepted it. It's like you said, right. Amen. Okay, they affirmed it in a sense, but then the phrase that you're asking about, Gail, is what translated they bowed low in homage or something like that. Is they accentuated, they emphasized. It was a confident bowing. Right? It's not two different acts. One almost kind of describes the other, the way that I understand it. Okay, the first word is a rare word in the Bible. Vayiknu. They added a nikudah. A nikudah is an emphasis. you know, so they pointedly bowed in that sense, not two separate, but you're right. It's a phrase that does not appear very often at all.
Yeah.
However we translate it.
Right. Again, it must have been an excellent presentation of the of the points, because it said they believed, but then to put an emphasis on it, they added the phrase "and they bowed," or they nodded their heads, as opposed to applause or cheering or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just have they bowed low. It didn't say that they knelt and bowed and all that.
Right.
But Ricky, you had your hand up.
Yes, I want to go back to something Rabbi Roman said one whole time ago. He said that Aaron was in a leadership position, but he did as he was told. To me, that's an absolute contradiction of terms.
It is.
Because a leader doesn't do as he's told. He's off there in front.
That's why Aaron is such a contradictory figure in the history.
Yeah.
And that's why there are those who say Aaron is great. Havemi Talmidav Shel Aharon, we should all follow Aaron's style and his manner. And there are others who say no. He's in the framework. He's second to Moses.
Yeah, he's a follower, not a leader.
The other thing is this same discussion will come up several times as we go through our readings from now on. The same discussion between the interplay of Moses and Aaron. They could have been very close brothers, but they certainly have different personalities. And this is I think, if we follow the role of Aaron through the different stories about Aaron and the role of Moses, okay, I think we get to a point, is one doing it for him, doing things for himself, and the other doing it for the people. Okay. And you see a difference in the characters there, and as everything will play out. Yes, Larry.
In 29, they mentioned they gathered all the elders of the children of Israel. Now, when we're saying the people trusted, believed, gave homage, was it because the elders set the example and influenced the people? That is there an implication that Aaron spoke to the elders and not the people, or did he speak to the people also?
I'm going to say all of the above.
Okay.
But no, you have to, if you think about a situation like this, you have to have if you think about a corporate organization, the senior partners, the other elders, the different parts in management, they all have to buy into this. Then it's more likely that the other workers will also buy into the entire process.
Yeah, we use the term now, influencers.
Yes. So it may simply be that this is, there are different parts of corporate structure that are going to come up in Torah. When, Jethro, we've discussed, when Jethro says to Moses, hey guy, you don't have to do it all this way. You can let other people do this. It's part of corporate structure too, that you have to have faith that the people understand. Yes. Please, Rabbi Mary.
Well, one of the things that, I mean, in this passage, when it talks to the elders, it always came to my mind that there was some kind of organization among the slaves. Because as the Ziknei Ham, it's not just, okay, everyone that it's above 65, go and get vaccinated. No, 65, those are the elders. Usually the elders are from a tribe. It's like a leader that comes. And we hear about them furthermore as well. So for me, it was a revelation and let me think about the issue of organizing. And when they leave, they're organized. And when they stand in front of the tent of meeting, they are organized. Anyway, at that time, they respected older people, things change.
So now I'm going to play on your memories. What are the signs that Moses performs before the people?
No, not that Moses, I don't think it's not.
Aaron repeated all the words that the Lord had spoken to Moses. Oh, and Aaron, well, again, is it Moses or Aaron? So let's say Aaron, for purposes of discussion. This is verse 30.
Right.
So what are the signs?
Oh, no.
What were the signs that God gave to Moses? Yes, Don.
Well, we have to assume Moses still has his rod with him.
Mm-hmm.
So at least one would be the rod suddenly comes alive.
Okay, and then what happens after that?
But in 28, look at 28. 28 says, and Moshe said to Aaron, this is my translation, all the words that were sent to, and all the signs. So it tells Aaron all the signs. So we can assume that Aaron could provide those signs to the people as well.
Okay, but what are these signs?
Those that Moshe already saw in the bush.
Excuse me?
The snake and the leopard.
With the hand, that's right.
Right.
So those are the signs, and those are going to be important as we go through the different plagues and so forth.
So,
Yes, go ahead.
So Miri, are you saying that Aaron actually did these signs? So he put his hand in
I think so, because it's not that he was not a witness when it happened to Moshe. Moshe told him, and he told him the story of what happened, and he told him about the signs. So in my mind, it would make sense that if Aaron is talking to them, he also made, look what God made for Moshe, and
Moshe,
he can
Moses
talk,
had,
and Moshe does it.
yeah, he had no credibility to these people. He was a stranger. But Aaron, they knew Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
They knew as one of their own.
Yeah.
So who is going to throw the rod down before the Pharaoh? Is it Moses or Aaron?
Moses.
Let's wait and see.
Moses, definitely Moses.
Okay. So why wouldn't Moses be the one to throw it down now? He's the one that carries the staff.
Right.
Well, Rabbi Norman suggested something. He said
Yeah.
that they knew Aaron, they didn't know Moshe.
Okay, so wouldn't it be Moses, that if Moses does it, then we could accept that Moses is the voice, what they hear Moses tell Aaron to do the speaking, but Moses, if he does the actual act, then wouldn't he be given more credit for being the messenger directly from God, and Aaron the second messenger?
Well, you assume that he would have said, this is what God did to Moses. Moses told me, I'm demonstrating it to you.
Okay.
Same kind of thing that Moses still, if indeed Moses is hesitant to speak, he's going to be hesitant to speak to hundreds of thousands of Israelites also, as well as just to the.
Okay. I would just think it's more dramatic if Moses then suddenly does these things after Aaron
Moses
has said
is humble. Moses is humble. He says,
Yes.
no, here, brother, these people, let.
Okay.
Give you
Now,
the credit.
Larry, I'm going to give Larry a chance, then Pastor Bruce, and then Gail. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure who had their hand up first. Okay. Larry, you're muted. Larry, you're muted. Larry, you're muted. Now, go ahead.
Yes, okay. According to Hertz commentary and did the signs, Jewish commentators assume that this means Aaron performed the signs. Others hold it was Moses. So they give both. No.
Okay, that's okay. Because again, it's just using one pronoun, he.
Yeah.
It doesn't say which one. So it depends. We could say the traditional that Aaron is doing it. We could say maybe there's another commentary as well. Pastor Bruce.
As Rabbi Roman just pointed out a few moments ago, but wait, there's more, because when we get to Moses and we get to Pharaoh,
right.
I would assuming that Pharaoh really didn't know Aaron, and so the reverse of all this is going to be happening at some point.
Interesting. Gail?
That's what I was just going to say, that the
Okay.
Pharaoh didn't know either one of them. So
Yeah. This is a new Pharaoh. That's right. Yes, David.
I'm not sure. I might have gotten this wrong, but to answer your question about whether Moses or Aaron cast the rod so that it would become a serpent, didn't Moses tell Aaron to cast down the rod?
Yes, he did.
Mhm.
He did when he
Yes,
talked to
in
him.
verse 28. Okay, and it says, and that can be a very logical conclusion. And as was pointed out by the rabbis, that is the most common description. Yes.
So this is a rehearsal.
Yes.
Okay.
You could
Aaron,
look
let's
at it
make
that
sure
way.
that you know how to do it.
Yeah.
And the other
Let's
thing,
rehearse.
whoever it was, I don't know, Larry, whoever just said no, or Miguel, I don't know. The story, as the story continues, it appears that Pharaoh and Moses do know each other. Okay, because Moses grew up in the palace. So we assume, and Cecil B. DeMille certainly has them as rivals, but we assume from the text, at least the classic way of commenting on the story is that they did know each other.
I don't know if we have to fill that in, because it would maybe be in commentary, because we're only told that Moses has gone back to see his kindred before he slays the Egyptian who is beating up the Israelite slave.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't point out that he specifically visited with everyone, but it says kindred. So that may be why we can say that. Any other comments about this? One more question. Why, and it in verse 31, and the people are convinced because of all the signs and what has been said. But why would you put in the extra line about when they heard that the Lord had taken note of the Israelites and had seen their plight, they bowed low in homage? Why would you add that in?
That was my question.
Go ahead. Who would like to expand on that? I think it's an important question. Why would they do that after they already have said, oh, we're convinced? But why is it stated that it's restated so many times that God has taken notice of their plight and now is going to do something about it? Yes, Chris.
You mean Grace?
Well, Chris had her hand up. Grace, did you have your hand up too?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
She's muted. Grace is muted.
Okay, Grace, since you're unmuted, you speak first and then Chris can unmute herself.
Okay. I don't know that I have an answer to your question, but I've been listening thoroughly throughout the discussion, and I get the feeling that Moses is completely overwhelmed, right? And we speak of his humility, and we speak of who he's like saying to himself, who am I to be this person that God wants to perform these miraculous signs to get these people, what their desire is, their freedom, their, out of bondage. It's an overwhelming thing, I would imagine, especially he's got a speech impediment and he's not done all the things correctly, and he's kind of questioning God's ability, and God gets a little perturbed with him. And God is at this point, he's providing the tools for Moses, and Aaron is Moses's tool, right? And Aaron is there to also lift up Moses and say, I believe the things that he is to do because God spoke to me also. And they're just restating that fact. He's like, God talked to me as well. Hey, you guys, it's like, this is the real deal here. And I think we need to be grateful for this realization. And I guess in my own thought process, that's what they're saying, is that they're paying homage to the idea, and they're very hopeful at this point. Their spirits are lifted. They're very hopeful that something miraculous is about to take place.
Very good. Very good. Chris, you had a hand up, and then Rabbi Norman.
I would like to believe that at that point, when they have all acknowledged that God had heard their prayer, they are now recognizing that there is a God in their midst, and that there is that power that can relieve them from their agony at this point. And I would say the most normal thing to do is fall down on the ground and worship him. Recognize him, that he is the Lord that has promised the deliverance. That's my take on that.
Good point. Rabbi Norman.
The first part of Moses and Aaron, whoever actually was the one who was doing, presenting these signs. But the first part is to convince the people that there is a God.
Exactly.
Right? that there is a God, and that we, Moses and Aaron, speak on God's behalf and represent God.
Mhm.
The second part is, guess what? God is here to help you. Now we've demonstrated God's power. Now now the next part of the message is
Right.
specifically God's power is going to be used to save you. So that's why I think, and we see that pattern several times in God's messages, whether it's directly in God's words or whether it's Moses or even Aaron presenting it. Is at first there's like, I'm going to introduce the topic, and then I'm going to make it personal to you.
Oh.
Yeah, very important, because
Thank you, Rabbi.
as a matter of fact, you may want to have a chance to take out a Haggadah, and you'll get the feeling that this is part of this whole episode. Very important. Yes, Gail, did you have your hand up?
Oh, I was just going to say, when I would like to keep Aaron kind of in our minds as we move through this whole thing, because is he only a mouthpiece? Does he have any thoughts of his own? You know, I find him a really interesting character, and I'd just like us to be aware that he's there too. So.
Wait until the golden calf and his episodes with his sons.
No, I understand that part, but I'm just saying, you wonder what's going through his mind. All he's doing, you know, is like a robotic something or other, interpreting words, and that's it. And he has no dialogue with God at all.
That is the science side. Okay. He's not asking the question why. Okay, I have been told.
He doesn't ask. He doesn't.
That's right.
He has no dialogue at all. None.
Exactly.
Ever. He just takes Moses' word for it that he's having a dialogue with God, which I think
good point.
That's
good point.
That's an interesting relationship.
Of course, pardon me. We need to remember that this is not eyewitness account. Okay. And the particular editor or writer of this narrative may have been an anti-Aaron thinker. Okay. And so he's downplaying Aaron's role.
Right.
As opposed to later chapters when Aaron is glorified. So we do need to keep that in mind. But, but Gail, I agree with you.
Are you implying that there's bias in the Torah?
And we don't really know that much about his motivation or his feelings or anything.
It's almost like the women in the Torah. You know, they're just mentioned as kind of a side story, or you know. But there's
you know, later on, he is a Levite. And as a Levite, he gets the title, you know, you inherited it, you are, you know, the top guy for the Levites. And as Rabbi Norman said, and you know very well, that this is the part that the Levites wrote.
Right.
In which they glorify.
That's right. I want to just make one comment before I call on Don and then Chris. We can all see when other people have their hands raised. So please respect everyone, because we may want to say something right away, but it is very important to give everyone a chance. And I try to do that in sequence. Sometimes we don't, but it's important that we let everyone have a chance to say what they want to say. Yes, Don.
Quick comment on Aaron, and my main point after that. But I never questioned central casting in the Bible, because whoever does that always gets it right. But my question was that in order for Moses and Aaron to communicate all this with people, he would have had to get them all together. And I'm wondering how he did that, because one of the complaints to Pharaoh is going to be, I can't get all the Hebrews together to go and worship. In this case, he gathers them all together, and I don't know how they would have gotten leave to do that, given the situation, if anybody knows.
Almost over.
Well, what's your take on it, Don? Because it could, like anything else, it's not mentioned. It had to spread around by word of mouth. They didn't have an iPhone.
But they clearly all gathered for a ceremony, religious ceremony, and that was strictly prohibited by Pharaoh. That's one of the, in fact, that is the major complaint against Pharaoh, is that he won't let them go and get together. So it seems like some sort of conflict here. I don't have an answer.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Anyone else on Don's question? Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we don't know much about Aaron, but we do know enough to say, like we saw, he was also a humble person. He was also a very obedient person, one that took the voice that his brother heard or Moshe heard as a reality and as something that he needed to follow in his heart. So we do have a lot of things that give us an idea that Moses was a good man, a righteous man, and definitely one that God trusted him. So I just like to think that we have more than and nothing to base ourselves in the fact. I just love the way God works. That's all there is. He picks the right people and he's not fooling around. He knows what he wants and he goes after what he wants.
Sounds like Santa.
Okay. Very good. Yes, Rabbi.
I really can't give an answer to Don's question, but I pick up on it that, especially as Maimonides, as the Rambam, picks out, that there are certain times when the incident or the revelation is described le'enei kol Yisrael, that in the presence of all Israel, or everyone was an eyewitness to it, and that kind of affirms Moses's leadership, that affirms that Moses has a different relationship with God than any of the rest of us would have. And at least the classical understanding is it is, since they didn't have those who were present and those who were on Zoom, is that Moses and Aaron, when they spoke, that the leaders of the tribes, that they were the ones who heard the message firsthand, and then they would pass it on to their individual clans around the people. So everyone got the message, but they weren't all eyewitness at the exact moment. That's the way that they would, kind of understand. Because as Don said correctly, that they weren't allowed to assemble all those hundreds of thousands in any one place.
Right.
Yeah.
Rabbi Mary.
Yeah, it was the elders, and it says he combined the elders of the people. So it was, as Rabbi Norman said, the leaders. This is for Chris. Chris, I want to let you know that Aaron is considered a person of peace. And it says, be like Aaron, follow peace and look for peace. So that's the picture that our ancestors made out of Aaron. So he was a very sweet man that didn't want conflict, that wanted everyone to be in peace.
Very, very well stated. Very well stated.
Thank you, Rabbi Mary. Thank
you. Any other questions, statements, ideas, comments? Okay. Any announcements that you wanted to make, Ruth Ann?
No, just that the sisterhood has a trip to Tubac on Wednesday, 9:15, meet at the temple, and that's it.
Very
Is it
good.
quiet? Oh, Rabbi?
If I may, to those who will be celebrating a Merry Christmas next week,
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
happy and healthy and meaningful, peaceful celebration of your holy day.
Thank you. Thank
Chris,
you.
that's
Well said.
One
Yes,
more
Chris.
question. One more question. Rabbi, how's the baby?
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So for those who may not have heard, we had a granddaughter born this week, 6 weeks premature.
Oh my God.
She's doing fine. She's out of the what they call the NICU,
good.
the neonatal intensive. Now she's just in special care. She's no longer on a feeding tube.
Oh,
So
good.
everybody and mother's been discharged. So everybody's fine. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome, Rabbi, and congratulations again to all the family.
Thank you.
Mazel tov, mazel tov.
I want to thank you, Rabbi, for everything, Rabbi Miri. What I personally enjoy are all the different discussions. Some different, and some of them are based on our readings of different time periods in Jewish history. And I think it is tremendous. And this was another one. Y'all got me. Y'all gave me a lot of.
Thank you for your leadership, Marty.
That's right,
Thank
Marty.
you. Well,
Thank you.
But anyway, have a great week.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.